I feel like I've seen enlightenment, and I thought it was going to be about levitating and telekinesis, and it's actually just about an increased awareness of how annoying I am. Have 50 other things to talk about, but we are a little bit, well, I wouldn't say tangled up in each other's nervous systems, but maybe a little bit not vulnerable.
Jess is whining.
All right, I'm going to plead my case here. All right. Here's what happened. So we bought this house, this beautiful house that was on a golf course. And the golf course had been purchased by one of these shitty developers that are ruining the United States of America. And they are putting all these houses like right up against the property line. And so when we moved in, we put up a wall right there and some trees around the property line. And I was trying to be very meticulous about making sure that nothing was going over into what is going to be 5 neighbors because of the way that they've lined this up. So it's our yard is 5 houses. And I feel like I understand. I hate the matrix. I hate the way that institutions operate. And I also have raging PDA, meaning pathological demand avoidance. And I fucking hate being told what to do. And the way that I prevent being told what to do is to get in front of it. And this is how I operate in work. And I did not operate like this in school. But if I think you're going to come correct me, I just tried to get in front of it. And it's also like sometimes why I have a intense reaction to the way that some people word comments, is because I have a very deep nervous system reaction to being told what to do. And the way that institutions tell you what to do is particularly infuriating, because most of the time it doesn't make any fucking sense and it's petty as hell. So anyway.
But they have like a lot of leverage, because they can leverage the law or the bank,
right,
or just a lot of money, and like force you to do what they want you to do.
Yeah. And it's like how right now I'm really struggling to pay the taxes because I'm so outraged by what they're doing with the taxes. And I've never been more tuned in to what they're doing with the taxes. And it's literally like, it's when I think it's stupid, like one of our car's tags are expired. Because if I think it's stupid, it's so hard for me to get my body to do it. And it's really hard for me not to just be like, why don't you try fucking yourself, you know? And so it's like I homeschooled my kids so I don't have to deal with the absolute lunacy of the school system being like, you need to send your child to school sick, you know, but then they're not, you know, they have like pedophiles working at the school. It's like, it's really hard for me to not freak the fuck out on them also. And so, yeah, it's just, it's very dysregulating to my nervous system. And I didn't know about PDA until a couple of years ago. So I just thought that this was some sort of malfunction of my system. So anyway, how I navigate this is I anticipate what could possibly be an issue and get in front of it. And so a couple years ago, while we were figuring out like how to kind of put up some sort of fence situation that is nice and nature filled and whatever to try to save the vibe, I was being like nuts about not even going an inch over the property line or whatever.
You should use a more precise word than nuts. It's like psychotic.
Yeah, all fun and games now.
For,
so anyway,
for months.
And what was frustrating for me at the time, because I'm definitely the like noise, nickels, and numbers person in the relationship. So I'm the one that has to deal with all the bureaucracy. I'm the one that deals with all of this sort of stuff. You're like the artist. And I'm also not built for this shit, but can do it more than you can do it. And so how I experienced you at that time was like very dismissive. And the way I was taking it, at least, and maybe this isn't how you were thinking or feeling, was like, it's not a big deal. It's a few inches, which, ladies, I was just kidding. And so what was frustrating to me about that is that I agree with you that a few inches doesn't matter, but sometimes when we are dealing with the system, which you've just been blessed to have to deal with very little, you went straight from like a team of people handling that for you.
I mean,
to
I
me.
would say, yeah, we can get into that. Because this is part of the crux of my perspective is, yeah, we'll get into it, but yeah, keep going.
So what I was trying to say is like, I agree that it's nonsense, but when someone buys this house, a surveyor is going to come out who works for the bank, and they don't give a flying fuck about whether or not this 3 inches of dirt or a tree or a fence. They don't care about any of that. They're going to go, yeah, I don't care. Dig your fence up. And at the time, what I remember is you being like, they're not going to do that. And maybe that's not what you were saying, but that's how I was taking it. And so anyway, our daughter's best friend lives like 4 houses down from us. And that has just happened to her. On one corner of their yard, their fence is going over 3 inches, not even into the neighbor's yard, because there's like a 10-foot, I don't know what they call it, HOA buffer or something. And so it's literally just going like up against a tree. It's nothing. And they're making her dig her entire fence out because of the 3 inches. And so since that happened 2 days ago, I have been in, now this Aries energy we'll talk about is no joke. I have been in a intermittent panic, because no one listened to me when they were putting the trees in. I was like, these trees need to come forward. I must have said 500 times it needs to be between this wall and this tree. And I am right now processing, feeling like you were dismissive at the time of that. And now my safety net, which is I'll just get ahead of it. Like now I'm like, potentially I'm going to have to deal with multiple banks, or I'm sure it's all the same bank, but like multiple times because it's multiple houses coming in and nitpicking us, where I was trying to get ahead of that. And I think that when we're dealing with things like this, because you're not familiar with the system, I feel like you think I'm being crazy when I'm like, these aren't my rules. I'm just trying to avoid these fucking idiots' rules, But so here's my theory, if I may, bringing this back to human design. I'm really interested in this part of human design, but I haven't learned a ton about it yet. But I have fear motivation and you have guilt motivation in human design. And we both have possibility perspective. So I'll start with possibility perspective. You see the possibility coming from inspiration in anything. You are a sampler, great for keeping the spirit up and can avoid all the sadness in life. Sick. We got a good one. You shouldn't turn things into expectations. So other views you can have are personal, probability, wanting, need, power, possibility, and survival. And then all of these, if you're in your not self, you have the opposite. So, or you have a different one. So if we're in our not self, we have probability. If we are in probability view, we say, I know this, and you bet your life on it. You are too rigid and closed-minded. You see the practical probability instead of the possibility, which comes from inspiration. This can cause worries, problems, and kill your dreams. What are you laughing at?
That perfectly describes.
No, it's a possibility. Okay, I'll give you that one. But now we're going to talk about motivation. Now I have fear motivation. Let me see if I can read that one from here. I can't. Okay, I have fear motivation, which means when I'm in my proper energy, I am anticipating, I'm building foundations, and I'm anticipating what could go wrong. We'll look at mine in a second to see if I'm also, but let's just talk about yours. Yours is guilt. Guilt as a personal motivation refers to the drive to make improvements or repairs in one's environment or relationships. Maybe that's what it is. You just long to fucking have to repair those trees. Individuals with this motivation often feel a strong sense of responsibility to address issues they perceive as problems, believing it is their duty to find solutions and create balance. Guilt motivation can manifest in various ways, such as helping others, offering support, or solving practical problems. Those with guilt as their primary motivation may also find themselves drawn to professions or roles where they can contribute positively to the well-being of others or their community. While this motivation can lead to positive outcomes and strong connections with others, it is important for individuals with guilt to ensure that they are not motivated solely by an unhealthy need for validation or inability to accept imperfection. When their desire to fix things is driven by a genuine care, and when it might be a manifestation of an internal struggle with self-worth or feelings of inadequacy. I feel like I fucked that sentence up. It doesn't matter. We're going to talk about the not self. So when you're in your not self, hope is your motivation. While maintaining a hopeful outlook can be beneficial, it can become detrimental when it leads to passivity or an unwillingness to take responsibility for addressing issues at hand. Relying solely on the expectation that problems will resolve themselves or that others will step in and find solutions can contribute to stagnation, missed opportunities, or a lack of personal growth. I feel like sometimes you're like, there is an issue at hand, and you're like, nah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine, when there is like no explanation for why that'd be fine. So we'll look at mine and see if I'm also full of shit. Fear as a personal motivation refers to the drive to understand, analyze, and navigate the world around oneself based on a heightened sense of alertness and awareness. Individuals with fear as their primary motivation may have an innate ability to perceive potential threats or challenges. That's not the same thing as me saying, I know what's going to happen. Enabling them to take appropriate precautions and make informed decisions to ensure their survival and well-being. People with this motivation often possess strong analytical and problem-solving skills, which can be valuable in a variety of professions and situations. Their heightened sense of awareness can make them adept at identifying risks, anticipating issues, and developing effective strategies to address them. However, it is important for individuals with fear as their motivation to maintain a balanced perspective and not allow their heightened awareness to become all-consuming or paralyzing. Excessive fear or anxiety can hinder personal growth and prevent them from fully experiencing life's opportunities. Now, in your defense, when we moved into this house, I did spend an enormous amount of time preparing for a home invasion.
Right.
So I get it. Transference for me is need. Faced with the challenge of survival or achieving your goals, you may experience a sense of urgency, that pushes you to take actions you believe to be essential despite potential drawbacks or adverse consequences. This need-driven approach can lead to overlooking critical details or alternative solutions, which may ultimately impact your situation in unintended or undesirable ways. It's essential to balance the drive for immediate action with thorough consideration of potential outcomes and risks. Well, I was doing a podcast with Kelsey the other day, and she was talking about the combination of motivation and view. So she has innocence. Oh, I can't remember what her view is, but she has innocence motivation. So when I'm talking about 2027, I'm seeing all the like inspired potentials and possibilities, but I'm also like preparing because I'm like fear motivation's like the prepper, which is interesting. Like when I think about your guilt motivation, I think about you do have this like heavy, sense when you're in that energy, this heavy sense of duty. Like,
yeah, because there's a fear of like not performing correctly in the moment and later down the line regretting it, feeling guilty about I didn't do enough. Yeah.
And like I remember like sometimes when we would have conversations about what's to come or whatever, it would trigger, I need to make art, or I need to you have this strong sense of needing to help.
Yeah, for me it feels like it's there's a subtle awareness of like a soul mission that I'm constantly being tempted away from like the spectacle of reality, the distraction, and needing to stay focused and hold that line, which is like elusive sometimes when you're really caught up in shadow, not self, desires that are not really aligned with that. And so there's like a constant earning, like striving to keep in alignment with that and constantly being led astray,
Yeah. So, and this is, you can't find this on every human design reading. This is the neutrino design. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
App that gives you all of the info, and we're still learning about it. So probably not going to be a great resource for the rest of them. The motivations are innocence, guilt, need, desire, hope, and fear. I think we got two of the bummerest ones.
Yeah, I mean, well, where I think in this situation specifically, it's like, I think where the crux of it is like we got caught up in each other's energies and the way that like we operate. And I think we've learned a lot even in the year since this like first started with the trees, how to traverse this more and more. But this is obviously another lesson to like unpack and learn. But, for me, like I would say at the time that it was occurring, because it had already been months of like hyper fixation on it that I got pulled into, because just getting the wall lined up, having to mark the lines before they came, having to really explain to them, hey, this is like nuance, like you can't move an inch, all of that was not something that I'm typically like good at doing. I am kind of a vibes guy, and that can, as you said, in the like, shadow part of it, is the idea of like just hoping that it'll work out can be sometimes something that is, you know, negative consequences come from. But how long it had gone on, like I was at my wit's end once it came to the trees going in. I was just like, to me, there was so much resistance in the reality that it was like, we tried to tell them where to put it. They didn't. The first was with the berm, putting all this like dirt up to get ready for the trees. The berm was kind of not in the right spot. So then the guys coming in to do the trees are like, well, we're going to put it in the middle of the berm because that's what makes sense for the plants. So that was off. And then, so it was like, we had to, it took a lot of micromanaging that to me is just, I can only do so much of. And usually like in my life, when I look back, there's so many times where when I start to get enough resistance in reality, there's like an automated thing that goes, okay, just let it happen. I guess it's supposed to happen, or I don't know, down the line, like whatever happens, happens, and I'll deal with it. And that has led me to like really positive things in life. So it oftentimes works out. And that's what I would say when you're like, you've been blessed to like just not have to deal with those things. Part of that, yeah, but I do believe a lot of the actions that I just, it's a real vibes guy. So if like the vibe starts to get off when I'm pushing in a certain direction, I pull back some. And in certain situations that can be detrimental because I'm just going, oh, well, I hope it'll work out. And, you know, and there have been times where it hasn't, you know, worked out in the best possible outcome. However, when I meet that moment, when it comes, I just trust that I'll deal with it then. And sometimes that has been frustrating and I've had to like do extra work to clean up some mistake that I could have probably fixed earlier.
Right.
But those have all in those times have been fine and beneficial. And I just learned the lesson. And so in this, how it kind of came together, I think like what probably should have happened is instead of what came across as eye rolling to you or like okie doking you, I should have just clearly been like, I can't do it anymore. So like, you just take the reins. If like you need to go do it and micromanage them, then okay. But I'm tapped out, man. And like, cause I think my PDA was activated at a certain point where it's like, I don't care to do this and I need to be doing something else. But I think maybe what happened is that at that time, like my eye rolling and kind of, you know, slowing you down on what you were doing influenced you so much that you then were like, okay, I guess I shouldn't micromanage and push through what I'm seeing, which has now caused a year later for this thing to now bubble back up and be like, I was right, damn it. And now we're going to deal with the thing, you know? And so I think we've learned since then to like not allow someone else's energy to affect you as an individual too much that you sacrifice like what you're seeing, you know? But at that point, it wasn't really like a people pleasing thing to me. I just really was like, it was so much resistance for me that I just disengaged. And I think in that, you know, it was probably, I didn't have enough space to properly communicate that to you. So it came across as like eye rolly and just like, God, you're really obsessed with this. Like you really have to control every element of this, huh? That's where we got caught up in each other's energy and misinterpreted each other in a way that was like, it's really, we were just trying to both be in our energy and be who we are authentically, which can work really well if you don't get caught up in each other's energy and kind of blame the other for not being able to actually show up how you should, you know? And I think that's where a lot of this was. And to me, that's when you were describing those, like the shadow versions. It's like we were both in the shadow version of it. You know, it's pretty clear. You were hyper fixated on something so much that you're not seeing the other potential of like something actually needing to play out, and you resisting it so much that you hyper fixate and try to control every aspect, or whatever the shadow was. It was clearly stated. And then for me, it was a bit of a like hope. You know, I got into a place where it's like it's too much resistance that I'm just like, I hope it just works out, you know, and it still may, but I just trust it'll work out, you know. But I can see how that sometimes has bit me in the ass before. But primarily it's worked out in my life. Like when there's enough resistance and my vibe is off, my automatic function is like disengage, dude, protect your energy and get positive again. And then just sync up with a timeline where it works out. You know, a lot of that was subconscious in my life, but now I realize that's like what the mechanism is. And then if I'm in positive energy, like when the problem shows up, I just meet it where it's at and deal with it. And it can be frustrating, but I think where the crux of it for me is, like you said, it's like I'm kind of wishful thinking or hoping that it works out with a company that is like such a stickler for fine details and will do whatever they need to do to make sure they get that fine detail. And it's ridiculous from my perspective because it's all ridiculous. And I could see how like wishful thinking through that won't work out because they are such sticklers for details and have the leverage to enforce their agenda over ours. So if you're wishful thinking, they just take advantage of that, you know?
Yeah, it's just like it's systemized. It's very cross the planning. And so it works.
So we can just admit you were wrong and I was right.
No, I actually
kidding.
like can't even really.
I'm just kidding.
I don't really know how I was in my not self here, but I'm good at anticipating possibilities. So yeah, on the resistance conversation is interesting. I am also like, I don't know, I feel very tuned into our first world problems here in this conversation, but it just kind of is what it is. Our life is our life. I don't agree with any of it. I didn't want a wall. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to have to do any of this stuff. Way that the house was when we moved in was great. Like nobody has fences. Everyone's just kind of communally living. You know, I didn't want to have to do any of this. And so and so just real quick, because that's my point is like there was so much when we moved in. We loved the place, and then we tried every avenue, and there was like nothing we could do to stop it. And that's where I then try to go to that like macro perspective of like, wow, I don't agree with any of this, and I would love it to not happen, but it's happening, so it's got to be for some reason, even if it's just a lesson to learn patience and trying to kind of like let that thing come close to your reality, and that there's some other benefit somewhere down the line that maybe it's supposed to happen. We're supposed to have this experience now of learning the lesson of like trying to hyper control something that can't really be controlled. We should just let it occur, and everything that we try to do to control it or prevent it like makes it harder. So that's where I go, just like, okay, hands up, I'm going to let it occur. Whatever happens. I'm supposed to experience that, I guess. And I know you have that same perspective. It's just, it happens to bump up on a mechanism of yours that you do have a gift of like preventing things from occurring by seeing it in the future and being able to hyperfixate on the details and fix them before it becomes a problem. And so it created this like feedback loop of like, I know I can fix it, where I'm like, just let it happen. It's supposed to happen, you know? Yeah. So I guess what I would equivalate this in word. I would equate that to, this is probably a very boring podcast. You want to know what it actually looks like to fucking figure out it was this or not record, because we were not feeling very vulnerable with each other.
Well, maybe we can get into more interesting stuff in a minute.
But it's like, you know how you're the guy who uses a cup and then washes the cup and puts the cup away. And
yeah, so efficient, by the way. So efficient.
Real interesting that you say that. So then I'm the type of person to just dirty up all the cups and then wash all the cups. And you would argue that you save yourself the trouble of having to wash all the cups when you just clean your cup as you go, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing there as like, for me, it's like we could just handle this right the first time and not have to go back and fix it later.
Yeah,
so
I totally
for me
get
to
that.
say like, maybe you're just supposed to experience having to wash a full sink of dishes, you know,
Yeah,
it's
I get
just
it.
two different perspectives.
Yeah.
It's the same perspective we use when it benefits us, I guess.
Right.
And so I think just moving forward, for me, the lesson is I know that I'm the one who anticipates things, and maybe that's annoying to deal with because sometimes I'm anticipating things because it is possibility and not probability. We're probably not going to get home invaded.
Yeah.
But I am prepared for that. And I'm prepared for an earthquake, and I'm prepared for a flood, and I'm prepared for every possible thing, which, by the way, is fucking sick to have a partner that's like that. A little bit annoying, but like...
It is, but then there's like, I mean, all these things are so paradoxical and nuanced, but there's that thing that, that you talk about a lot. It's like preparing for something so much, and like you can pull that timeline. And so you can like hyperfixate on something because of an emotional drive or something that like you see the potential of something and you're going to prevent it. Sometimes taking too much action on that like makes the thing come. So it's like always this like nuanced, very weird, paradoxical thing. Because there's also the idea of like being able to be rational and be like, there's definitely a flood coming. I'm not going to wishfully think and hope it doesn't. I'm going to just prepare, do the like basic things, and then let go of the idea. And because I've prepared, I'm not focused on it anymore.
That's what I think I do. I don't think, I think the more you look at a potential timeline, the less likely it is to happen.
Yeah, I think both are true. Like it's
there's two different ways. There is, when I worry about something, it's way less likely to happen because in that worry, I will prepare for it and I will have like already created like a life raft for myself.
Yeah.
There is another thing that I see a lot of people doing right now where they are so wanting to be right. And we've talked about this before. Like, I don't want to get swept up right now in wanting you to admit that I was right, because then I'll start to hope that we get in trouble for where the trees are to prove that I'm right. Yeah. And that's something I see people doing right now with like, people on the left want the right to realize that this president is whatever. So his Hitler so bad that I'm like, that's where you start to pull the timeline, where you start to like reinforce every single action that's taken, which is not my perspective. I do not think we are in 1930s Germany. I think we are in the fall of the fucking empire. And so the empire is going to flex for a minute before it fizzles. And so that's when I see things happening, that's what I'm looking at. That's my confirmation bias for two reasons. Number one, it's on schedule, or three, on schedule. It's truly what I believe. But then also like, why, like, I'm not trying to pull like the worst case scenario timeline so that I can own the fucking right, who isn't going to fucking see it anyway. Dude, those people will be literally on fire saying, well, he has a point. I should be on fire. You know what I mean? So it's like, you're never going to win that. You're like, the things we'll do to our own reality in order to fucking get someone else to admit that they were wrong. So
yeah, it's crazy. That's such a deep desire, is like needing to have, what's the word? Not liberation.
Validation.
Yeah, it's validation, but having, justice. Like this obsession with being right and like getting justice from it will pull the timeline that like you get proven right, but the outcome is like you're in a fucked up reality where now you're just right, but the whole thing is collapsing or coming at you, Yeah. And that is, I think, is just really driven back to taking actions like from your emotions only. Is like you feel hurt that the reality didn't go the way you want. And so now you want to be proven right. And so you're just emotionally driven to like be validated, that you strongly pull a reality that will make you validated, but you experience the outcome of that reality, Yeah. And so that like, I think we all have that. And it for me, I've noticed when I've had that in the past, it's like coming from a hurt place and it's coming from an emotional stance. And being able to heal those emotions like makes it less likely that you have to be validated and proven right. You can just be still and like, well, I was correct there, and like, great, I'm moving on. I don't need everybody to come to my door and be like, hey man, you were right. That's crazy.
Yeah, and they never do. I guess that takes us to the next. Okay, that break was 48 hours. You just listened to 48 hours worth of elevator music. Upon editing this episode, I realized I was being a baby. And I'm going to leave in the first 40 minutes of me being a baby. But then we're going to cut out the rest and start over. I think I am tired and overwhelmed from being on the road for weeks. And then rather than coming home and resting, I came home to an enormous amount of work that has to be done, and soccer playoffs, and one kid in a play. And it's just been nonstop. And I think my resilience is low. And so really small things are feeling really big for me now.
I had the same thing. It was not the 2 inches off, but it was small things in the house, like dishes and things that usually are not super activating. But it's like a short circuit or something.
A very short fuse, right?
Yeah, I was like super good. I was just flowing with the day. And then like one little thing got at me, and then I hyper focused on it for some reason, which normally doesn't happen. And before I knew it, it's like in 5 minutes, I'm like activated and so like short with everything.
Yeah. So I think when I was talking about how excited I was to leave Neptune in Pisces, where it's been since 2011, 2012, something, to go into Neptune in Aries, because there is something debilitating, like foggy and like wading through jello, to have that Neptune in Pisces. I didn't really take into account how, it's Mars energy, and it's the child. And so it's impulsive and it's immature and it's war energy, and anger. So Pisces, I would say, is sadness, and Aries is anger. And so I think there is a short fuse kind of vibe right now that it's a very long transit. So I think we will.
How long is this transit?
I want to say it's like 2036 or something.
Oh,
they're
Jesus.
like 12-year transits, yeah. So I think once we've been in this energy and we've kind of learned how to navigate it a little bit, it's still, I think, going to be more fun than Neptune and Pisces. But I think in the transition, we're kind of having to get, and I say we, like collectively having to get kind of sea legs. It is bringing, you can see the boiling happening kind of out there in the world. It's bringing a lot of things to boiling points. We're still kind of figuring out how to navigate Pluto in Aquarius. So it's going to be less serious, but, where I think we were more likely to be pulled into melancholy or for everything to feel heavy, it now feels irritating.
Yeah.
And so you combine that with, all of the other things that are just making me feel ungrounded right now. And then I'm making a big deal about something really small.
Yeah, I feel like...
you were still wrong, but I just...
Yes.
It was cool to catch that on because I was tempted to take it all out, but...
Yeah, we were actually like 10 minutes before that, we were getting ready to podcast, and you came in steamrolling about it. And then it was like, okay, well, we started to talk about it. And it was a little bit like, oh, this is killing the vibe of the podcast.
Yeah.
And so then it was like, well, we need to get vulnerable. And sometimes it's really hard to get vulnerable when you're in those like triggered states.
You end up like in a defensive state. Yeah. So we've had podcasts over something stupid like that. We've had the intention to record and then not be able to record because
the vibe gets off.
The vibe gets off, yeah.
But it was nice. It was nice to just be like, well, let's try to work through it on the mic. And that oddly makes it like a little easier to be vulnerable. And it's interesting to try to work through it. I mean, it's probably helpful, but it is risky too. It could have just gone south.
Yeah,
I don't think we really do that much anymore. I mean, there's not many arguments that we get into that are like fiery. It's usually relatively balanced, but it can kill a vibe, and you just have to like separate for a bit. But
human design, like our relationship was never, we both came from relationships with a lot of conflict. And so not my marriage, but my twin flame thing. And you've experienced a lot of conflict as well. we never fought like that. Like we never
unconsciously
yelled at each other, or we never had an unresolved argument that I can think of. But in like years, 2 and 3, I feel like we had like control stuff that had to be worked through. And then I would say our primary issue, because we're aligned on so much and we are very compatible in the way that we are both like very introverted and like a lot of alone time and stuff. And like we're into the same things and we like to vibe in a lot of the same way. So we're aligned on a lot, but it's the difference in the energy types that was, I would say, the crux of things that we needed to work out. And then my still difference in energy types, like my hypersensitivity to tone change and your quickness with which your tone changed was, I would say, like the biggest, like the thing we had to keep coming back over and over again, which required so many different solutions on both sides. Like me doing nervous system work helped a lot. But like even that, at the crux of it, I was thinking this yesterday because there's 2 projectors in the house and you're both Capricorns, and Capricorns are pretty fucking sharp. They're either like the sweetest fucking person you've ever met or sharp. And they're both like, each Capricorn is both of those things. Right. And they just switch suddenly with no warning. But you add Projector onto that. So now I understand you, like when a projector has space, they plug into you and you exchange energy. And if you get them and they get you, it's the fucking best feeling in the entire world. But they cannot recharge while plugged into you. And so they have to have an enormous amount of time by themselves to recharge. And that needing time to themselves can feel like abandonment if you're someone who's sensitive to the time. I'm not sensitive to the amount of time, but if I run into you in the kitchen and you don't have enough battery to connect, and I crack a joke or I show you a funny video and you just kind of, your eyes glaze over and you don't respond, I used to take that as like, you don't like me or you think I'm an idiot or whatever. And so then I would try to connect more, and then you would get snippy with me. Mm-hmm. And then I would be like, I don't have to take this, and it would trigger all this stuff where now, yesterday, my projector teenager is in a play at school. And so they're in like tech week or whatever. So they're school all day and then hours. And this kid needs an enormous amount of time to themselves. So I tried to be helpful and say something about the weekend to himself. And he has no space to talk at all. So they're like snapped at me or whatever. And I just in that moment was like, oh, this is just what happens when a projector is out of space. It's like, I don't have space to make you feel good about our connection or whatever, And so anyway, I feel like all of our stuff ever, which has never been like bad, but that we definitely spent in those first couple years. Not the first year. I feel like the first year we were working on our own. We just kind of lived together while we were in our own personal hells. But as we really started to learn how to live together and work together, it just all comes down to the differentiation between our energies. And the more we learn about human design, truly, the more, I don't know, I feel like it was so helpful to us relationally.
Yeah, I think we were both too, like at that point, kind of learning about human design and more stepping into our own energy and like learning about it. And then when we're both doing that, then you're going to start to realize, like, because we're becoming more secure in how our energy works, but then we're learning how to set boundaries and how to understand the other energy type. And that's what I think became helpful, is to start to look into, like, for me, look into how a manifesting generator works and your lines and everything, to then go, oh, now I can correlate, like when I feel overwhelmed because she's like got 5 different things going and I need to help make decisions on some of them. I need just some space to like make a decision on that, or I'm not, then it's like, oh, I can understand. I don't need to take it personally. Like that's how she's supposed to operate. How can I adjust myself to just accept that, not take it personally, and show up how I can? And it's the same thing for either side. I think that's like what's so helpful about human design is being able to first understand yourself and start to be more in alignment with that. And then you can start to, with a partner, like understand how the other person's showing up and how to plug into each other, how to like accept each other as they are and not take things personally or try to control the other person and make them more like me.
Yeah.
You know? That was a lot of like shadow stuff in other relationships that was like constantly going on. Is like, I'm trying to make the other person more like me so I can be satisfied.
Yeah.
And then the opposite. And it just never, ever works.
No.
You're constantly pointing fingers and never solving the thing, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, that was like, when I look back at what relationships, I've had several long-term relationships. And the thing I was looking for was a place that I could be myself. You know, someone that I'm also interested in and that I find, you know, that I have feelings for, obviously. But the difficulty I had in relationships was, and weirdly, I was exclusively in long-term relationships with manifesting generators. I think they were all emotional manifesting generators, but they were, you know, in the not self or something. So key things about me, which are, I don't finish most things. I get really interested in something for a short period of time and then I let it go. I'm not someone that stays consistent in anything. You know, I do my best when I have 5 logs in the fire. I actually, as much as I'm whiny about right now, I am getting more done than when I only have one thing to get done because I actually operate better under like pressurized, busy conditions. And I just feel like past partners have like, if I got interested in something, it would be like eye rolly because like, oh, is this going to be another thing you abandon? You know, and I never feel that from you. And I think the biggest manifesting generator thing that we had to work through was like the fact that I need to be able to move fast and pull triggers, and that actually making me stop and wait for whatever vague reason is like as painful to me as you not getting an invitation, you know?
Yeah.
But so anyway, I feel like we talk on the podcast a lot about how we have reached these conclusions, you know, and I do when I was listening back, you know, even though it's over something pretty minor, I think it was, I don't know, cool to leave in there, like how we kind of use these tools to work through things. Cause ultimately the circumstances of the property line or whatever petty shit wasn't at the crux of why my feelings were hurt. At right. The crux of why my feelings were hurt, it's like I have this fear motivation I am very futuristic, period, and I'm wired that way. Like I have things in my astrology as well that I am like someone who is future oriented. But it makes me kind of preppery, and it makes me like not prepper the way that other people are preppers now, but I am like constantly scanning for what I could possibly get in front of. And I must have some shame around that. Like it must feel like something I perceive you to see as stupid, which means I see it as stupid, because otherwise you wouldn't be reflecting that back to me.
And it seems to be like a fear of if you don't get in front of something and then it bites you in the ass, it's like you failed at your duty.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, because the thing I was trying to get to when I was editing is I was like, I am very good at meeting the moment. And I am like truly at this point in my life, especially like, I'll just deal with it when it happens. And if it's a big fucking mess and I get in trouble, then I'll just was supposed to get in trouble. Like I'm very much aligned with that. But there is something when I see it ahead of time and I want to get ahead of it. There is something very frustrating to me about someone stopping me from getting ahead of it. And so I'm just kind of sitting with now, like how much of that is my shit and how much of that is like telling me like I should have just put my foot down in that situation. Because I feel like that's so often the lesson. It's not like that person crossed my boundaries, but like I betrayed my boundaries. I didn't stand firm in my boundaries. And the truth is, the only reason that this mattered in this moment was because I wanted you to handle the telling someone else what to do.
I was in still like a people pleasing.
Yeah, I mean, we're both pretty intense people pleasers. I am more likely to be honest with someone I feel close to than you.
100%.
But with strangers, especially
hard.
like an exchange of money, truly, if we could have planted the trees, we would have planted the trees. We just didn't feel confident that we weren't going to kill them.
And we didn't have the equipment, to be honest.
Yeah. But. I mean, if I order like fucking Grubhub, when they show up, I'm like, I'm sorry. You have to, like if we could do away with the bargain aspect of the cross of planning, and, that's a part of the thing when they're like, computers are taking the restaurant jobs. I'm like, yeah, well, I could not have to feel the guilt.
Yeah, but what when the AI becomes sentient, then you got to apologize to the.
I already apologized to the AI. Like I already like. I don't like that energy exchange at all. I don't understand how boomers can make a service person, and it, probably just because I've worked in the service industry, But I also just know it's not. The bargain is collapsing, and so people don't feel. They're not feeling fulfillment from the work. They're not making a working wait. That's why it's just like, I want the owner who I know is getting a pile of money. And then I just want that person to come do the work. Cause then I'm not going to tell the person you got to move the bush,
Yeah.
And so that's really at the end of the day, it was just not advocating. And then I don't even know how I feel about advocating because of those circumstances. So it was kind of nothing. I think you think I'm crazy. I think is like what? Because I think I'm crazy, right?
I love the crazy.
Obviously. Speaking of crazy, you're going to have to 5150 me if I don't get this motherfucking Katy Perry song out of my head.
She was hate watching Katy Perry's new tour shows last night on TikTok.
Yeah, I don't know what is it. It's not hate watching, but it is spectacle observing. But now I'm hate something. Katy Perry's music was really popular in like 2010 to 2013. I remember this because I remember just bitching about these fucking songs getting stuck in my head. And I've never heard a Katy Perry song that I liked. I don't understand that kind of pop music that is just something about it gets trapped inside your head, which makes me think it's some sort of psyop fucking programming. I am maybe too old for Katy Perry. I don't know. I mean, I was like in my early to mid 30s when this shit was popular. I don't get it. And she's now trying to make a comeback or something. A lot of these stars that were big before, J-Lo and her, these like they have fame goblins for sure. They have the hole in the aura that is the need to be fucking paid attention to, which I feel like is so loud right now. I feel like everyone in Hollywood on red carpets, I'm embarrassed for them. Like, because it's so loud, their need to be seen as higher than other people. It's cringy as fuck to me. And I can't tell if I can just see that clear as day because they're trying to milk some Pluto and Capricorn cross of planning elitist shit. And people are already being influenced by Pluto and Aquarius. And so we're all like, it's much more of a decentralized equal thing. And so I don't know. But Katy Perry's on tour right now. And yeah, I've been on about a 24-hour binge of watching videos and observing, like watching people try to take what worked for them in the cross of planning and revisit it right now. And I'm like, why are you revisiting it?
Yeah.
Part of me says, are you running out of money? But then this tour looks like it costs more money than you could possibly make on it. So to me, I think people are struggling with irrelevance, becoming irrelevant. And so they're trying to reach out and get that, just like J-Lo did, which I also couldn't stop watching videos of, because that's when I tell you the people who are going to struggle the hardest in the cross of Sleeping Phoenix are going to be the people who experienced a lot of acclaim and centralized power and centralized resources. because of the cross of planning.
Yeah.
People who exploited that or benefited from that, those are the ones that are really going to struggle.
Yeah, and it's like they're just doubling down, trying to squeeze every last bit of attention they can from it. So that's why it looks like a clown show. And it's like it doesn't feel like any of those people are able to read the room in the culture. Like that is kind of on TikTok and stuff. There is a lot of real more authenticity and actual philanthropic kind of like actions that are like real on the ground, people helping people. And then you see these like celebrities presenting as like, you know, talking about love and love everybody and accept individual, like they're kind of trying to jump on that trend, but it's so not the thing. It's like they're really missing the mark because they're doing it in this old cross of planning way that from their rooftop castle, you know, speaking down to the peasants. It's just so obvious. And I'm actually really pleased by the amount of comments that are like, what is this? Nobody's buying into it. Nobody's really like going with it like it used to. So people see it, you know, and they're not pulled into the spectacle anymore. It's that's really satisfying to see.
It's extremely satisfying. The tone deafness, because I got on the Katy Perry train because of this fucking quote unquote space flight or whatever.
Right.
That I don't know, you're not going to convince me that happened in the air, but that's fine. The tone deafness of a super rich person allegedly flying. Let's just say they did fly into space. Then telling people who can't afford to pay their rent, you know, you've never known love until you
it's
go
insane,
to
dude. You're just like, what? It's crazy, man. And I think that is like, we've been talking about the spectacle a lot, just of like the illusion that is constantly trying to be like put on to us through just lights and glam and like, look at this over here. It used to work so well.
Yeah.
Because people they could support themselves. And so it was fun to like get home after work and like watch a movie and get, you know, pulled into imagination and fantasy. But now people, it's like, we're just struggling to survive. And so when that machine continues to try to push a spectacle in your face, you're like, yo, stop. What? And it feels so fake. It feels so vampiric. And when you really like, I get in modes of just a lot of studying and seeking knowledge and like cracking open to seeing the different levels of the illusion of the reality and partly like the negative kind of force of the Matrix that feeds off of keeping people distracted. When I go into those modes and I'm like studying a lot and then I kind of come back at night or something and I just go on social media and look at TikTok, it's so clearly everywhere actually. Whereas times when I'm not doing that, I kind of get pulled into the sell me this on TikTok. Here's this, like buy this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do need that. Okay. And a lot of that ends up being like, I didn't fucking need that, but you scammed me and convinced me. And then even just a lot of the new age spiritual stuff, it's sometimes I'm like, oh, that's an interesting take. That's a cool idea. And it'll send me on a little rabbit trail through TikTok. But then when I come back with like fresh kind of knowledge and really seeing underneath and like kind of behind the veil, it all is just like everyone's trying to kind of get attention in these weird ways. Even in the spiritual new age movement, it's kind of more like me. I'm the all knowing. Don't do this. It's just everywhere. And it's part of the point. Like, I think as we're coming down to this pressurized moment where the background frequencies are shifting and we're kind of trying to really expand our energy, that takes a lot of work to be on your own and do your own like inner work. The thing that's going to prevent that is like when you get distracted via some spectacle. And it's at all levels, like even some of the drama that is pulled up in the culture with like this celebrity, you know, accusing this one of doing something dark, and like all of it, as much as some of that's true and like helpful for everyone to see through the illusion, even that is a aspect of like distracting you and pulling you away from the actual work that needs to be done. And so it's great, like, because there is a lot of inspiration on TikTok to do inner work and like learn certain things. But it's a fine line between like just getting distracted with it, and mostly it's like, oh, I'm going to add that. That's a great idea. I should add that to my list of things that I need to do. Let me keep scrolling and find another. Oh, I'm just going to add it to the list. And months go by and you never do the list because there's just like another thing to get distracted with. It's so hard. It's like, I think we all fall into it because it's sometimes nice to just like veg and go online and not have to, you know, take responsibility and learn discipline with yourself. But you can really see it ramping up as we get closer and closer to the like this actual shift. It's just like they're pushing everything, every kind of distraction you could ever imagine in. And it really is just a spectacle everywhere. Like every little thing is meant to pull you away from yourself.
Yeah. And so like, you know, that thing in the like conspiracy theory circles where every time something happens, they go, that's a distraction, you know, and that's always a little bit annoying to me because I'm like, well, people can pay attention to more than one thing at a time, you know, and there can be two things to be upset about or two things we're paying attention to or whatever. Spectacle to me feels like, and I'm drawing a blank now, but I watched a video about spectacle recently. I want to say it was in like an anarchist thing, but about what the purpose of spectacle is. And it's something more than just like we pay attention to it, because I'm paying attention to watching it be nuts. And I don't think that that's distracting me from, you know, I need to have 5,000 different things to look at in a day.
I think you can observe it from a place of I'm recognizing the falsity in this and I know my truth. And so it's actually education. It's helpful to like get a pulse on the culture by scanning through and kind of watching the chaos, but not getting pulled into it emotionally.
It's almost like it pulls you into a timeline, because I felt like spectacle was coming up a lot when allegedly, this seemed like a psyop to me, but like the government guy brought a press person into a chat about whatever. I think that's made up because I did that shit with a cop once. It's, you know, you let people think they caught you doing one thing so that you can program them with the information that you let them think they figured out. It's like I was doing that shit in my early 20s to the Portland Police Department. But the way that everyone gets like drawn into that isn't just that you're drawn into it and you're talking about it. I don't think that's the issue. I think it's the story that it reinforces, which is that these people are your authorities.
Yeah.
It's the way that it keeps you engaging with it. And then I saw something the other day, like someone in fucking Trump's cabinet, it's either the education person or the finance person, like the head of the department. I can't keep track. One of them's ex-husband is the World Wrestling Federation guy or WWE guy. And, you know, I always talk about the government it's wrestling. Pro wrestling, you know, it's fake as fuck. And I'm like, oh, this could not be more like in your face. But the government has captured so much attention right now. The spectacle is just reinforcing the story all day, every day, that they are in charge of you, that they are above you. And that's what celebrity used to do. So when Katy Perry was popular, we were dealing with the crash. And I would say for Gen X, that was very impactful for us because it was right around the time. And we being kind of the last generation that was able to really become upwardly mobile in the American dream, you know, and not all of us, but right as Gen X started to build something, then many of them lost it. You know, I hadn't built anything yet. I only had like 2 years clean when the crash happened, but the crash had a massive impact on me because I watched the news. And so I ended up on that fucking timeline. And that is when this kind of goofy ass pop was becoming very popular, was right on the back end of the crash, right? And so at that point, the spectacle was like celebrity is still above you. Like that was still the kind of collective. You had like Occupy Wall Street people trying to say like, fuck this, fuck these guys, whatever. But you had the masses were saying the banks are too big to fail. You know, if they tried to bail out the banks now, there would be very few people who would be like, well, the banks are too big to fail. We need to keep the system. The current belief is like, fucking let it fall, bitch. Let it fucking go, you know? But in 2008, when they were bailing out these, I mean, that was just such an obvious fucking scam, the whole thing. Your average person was like, yeah, we can't let the banks fail because we need to keep the system. Like people were still in it. And celebrities were still getting away with being just like completely out of touch and whatever, because then the people who were suffering under the weight of the crash would use celebrity movies and TV. I mean, that era was like the best in those like long form TV shows like Dexter and all those fucking, I can't think of the rest of them now. That was like such a good time in television because it was basically all you had, you know, because you couldn't go spend a lot of money. Like people had lost their homes, they lost their retirement, all these things they built. And so they looked to the spectacle to, you know, as like a relief. Yeah. And so that the part of the spectacle now that is so loud to me is how much it's not working, and how now when the entertainers are getting up and trying to capture the attention of people who are otherwise being just completely fucked by the rest of the system, people are like, go fuck yourself, you know? Where I feel like in 2008, if they flew to space, you would have a large portion of society, which allegedly there are some people thinking this, but you won't convince me they're not robots. You would have a large portion of society being like, well, there is hope because these celebrities got to go up there and one day I might get to be a billionaire. I might get to be a celebrity if I just keep working. Like the propaganda was so thick and it's gone now. I mean, I won't say it's gone, but we've hit critical mass of it. That's how I know this shit's going to fall apart, is because too many people are looking at it objectively. I do think a lot of people are swept up in the government spectacle right now, but at least that I'm like, well, it's tied to, you believe that your survival is connected to it.
Yeah.
And, but you're not looking to the absolute fucking narcissist class to bring you peace. You know, people are starting to really turn on celebrity, which means the rest of it's coming next.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's so much too in the like, I mean, going back to the Katy Perry, like the music being grating, but like you not liking it, but it being an earworm and stuck in your head.
What is that?
I mean, I think it's we talk about this a lot, how I think that there is really advanced tech being used on the masses and has been for a long time. And because it's so advanced, it's like it's way beyond like what we could even think of as a possibility. So it's hard to like protect yourself or be aware like what's happening because it's elusive. Because we think, you know, the highest tech is like the AI chatbot right now, or a rocket that can apparently go to space. When I think they've had like really advanced kind of microwave type stuff, frequency based tech that you just, if you're not aware of it, like you can't discern it. It's something that could like, you know, potentially if it's aimed at you, like it just changes your mood all of a sudden. And you think, oh, it's because all the dishes pissed me off, but it's actually just like a frequency manipulator that's like honed in at you and changes your chemistry. It's that subtle. And so I think in the little research that I've done as what, you know, in music, frequency-based stuff, like there's theories that go back, like the tuning of our modern music is in a different frequency hertz that is not as compatible with the body, and that was intentionally done. And it goes so far back, it's hard to say, like, it's hard to even listen to music that's in the proper frequency because it was like before you could even record it. But I think in the 70s was kind of the last time where music could be recorded and be broadcasted that doesn't potentially have frequency manipulation in it that is actually like negative. It makes you, it controls your emotions in some way. And I don't know exactly how, but I think once we moved into the 80s, a lot of the technology that started to get developed was kind of going through these like compression kind of things and mastering modalities that alter the frequency in such a way that it kind of sticks into you. And when you're also then motivating, like culture's motivating people to write lyrics about certain things that are going on, those things combined, you know, lyrics that are kind of in a negative theme that are kind of subtly about disempowerment or whatever it is, like sex. And I mean, hip hop was a huge part of that. A lot of people have theories that that's like they helped like influence that genre to catalyze more anger in the culture.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a direct correlation between certain types of rap that moved away from enlightenment rap or consciousness rap into rap that directly funneled black men into the prison industrial complex, and that they were in bed together.
Right. It's gnarly. And I think, so there's so many different levels of it, but I think it's from the 80s on, we started to have like a little bit, it's hard to discern when those frequencies are coming in. And it doesn't mean that there's modern music that can't be uplifting and like positively influenced, but parts of it may be going through certain systems that are at the back end of like broadcasting, so onto the radio or getting onto a streaming service. Their music, like just me being like a sonic file, kind of like when I make music on my computer and I finish it, it sounds a certain way. When I have to upload it into the streaming service and it comes out the other end, it does sound differently. It's very, very subtle. Most people won't notice it, but when you're really attached to your own art, like you can tell something's changed. And so I think within that shift there, that like it's hard to control and not have it happen, you know, that's controlled by some top level corporate company. And it's like, I don't even think they know, but it's how these things are handed down from, and they become like regulatory, like that there's something in that is diminishing the frequencies in a negative way. And so I think that's why, like, I think a lot of people listen to 70s music. I mean, if you're into it or not, but it has a different feeling, and it really does, like, you can connect to it. Then if you even go back later than that, you know, 50s and 60s and stuff, there's, again, it's kind of a taste issue as well, but like in general, that music is way more uplifting and inspiring. You can still find it in modern music, but I always feel like I have to dig through it. And it's just, for me, it's an intuitive feeling. And most of it isn't like the pop music that I can turn on and I can actually change my frequency into a higher frequency. Certain music that does that, it's just like a feeling that I have. When I'm clicking through a playlist, like, oh, this one's doing it to me. I can feel it moving me up. And then many others, it's like it's moving me down. And it might be a positive song, like it sounds positive lyrics. But the hook thing too is really interesting, because that's like an art to be able to write an earworm that sticks with you off of one listen.
Yeah.
And it's hard to judge. It's like, I don't think it's the artists that are knowingly doing it. They're being motivated to do something, but it's oftentimes those things are coming from artists that seem to be pretty like curated and captured. And I would say that's what Katy Perry like definitely became. Maybe in the beginning it wasn't that, but like, I don't know, pretty quickly. I mean, she was originally like a Christian artist and had some like authentic desire to be an artist. And in the beginning, maybe the first record, there was some like genuineness there that was like people could connect to. But pretty quickly she became a cog in the machine that like, that's obviously what she is now. It's like she believes she's doing art, but that she's hyper controlled and being directed to do things that ultimately that is like some kind of control influence mechanism that can happen through live performance that are some kind of like weird ritual type thing, or just even in the sonic frequencies that are coming out. Like I know that's how I am with most pop music and like that Katy Perry stuff. When I hear it, I I want to leave the room. I want to turn it off. But yet when I hear just one part of the chorus, it does stick in my head for hours. And it's like an aggravating loop in my head that I have to go listen to something else to get it to remove itself. And so I don't doubt that there's some kind of purpose to that. And in a subtle way saying it's kind of a weapon.
Yeah, and whether or not people consciously know that they're doing that, or it's just
I don't think they do, and I think that's what
I'm sure the artist doesn't. It's not like pop music's like made by a fucking team of people. It's not like a pop artist sits at their computer and makes the whole song by themselves, right? Not at that level.
Not usually at that level. But I again, it's like all under the guise of art, so you can get away with a lot when it's like this is just an artistic expression, and I'm doing this. You know, like a lot of people are pointing out like Gaga's performance at Coachella. It's like that. It looks like some satanic ritual, they want to call it. And I don't believe in this, like the Satan Lucifer thing. It's like way more complicated than that. It's not easy to just say it's a satanic ritual, but it's definitely like weird. It's got esoteric stuff in it. And it almost is like they're purposely doing it because it's a trend.
Yeah.
But I always think about, I'm like, okay, so Gaga probably didn't have that idea, but she's into like edgy stuff. So she's going to approve when like a choreographer comes with an idea. And you got to remember the choreographer is hired by the label most likely. So it all kind of funnels up to these higher like corporate people that, again, I don't know if they really know it, but they're divinely inspired in a quote artistic expression to do something like this. And I do think that that's coming from just some negative energy that can kind of like influence one's psyche to do a certain thing under the guise of like, this is art. This is just like a really cool thing to express. But I'm always trying to go like, is the choreographer, do they know what they're doing? Like they perfectly have set this thing up to match a lot of like esoteric lore of really powerful rituals to call in certain energies.
Yeah.
Who is doing it? Like who knows?
No, I just think all those people have like holes in their aura. You know, it's like the artist wants to be seen. The record executive knows that it'll get lots of press if it looks like demonic thing.
And that's what this goes back to the STS, STO stuff. It's like if you are obsessed with getting attention, you are kind of like service to self. You need other people's attention to make you feel good. You need external validation. That is a way that a negative energy can take advantage of you and like puppet you around. Mm-hmm. And you're not aware of it because you're so eager to get that external validation. And then under the guise of art, you're like, oh, it's just art. It's just like, let me go do this ritual thing. It's cool. It's just art. It's innocent. And you believe that. And so I don't really think that there are a lot of people that know what they're doing, but because they have that hole in their aura and they're so directed to like serve themselves, you can get puppeted by like very powerful energies that you are not even aware of are controlling you. And so all that being said, it's like, it's a scary kind of reality that if you keep pushing in that and search on knowledge about it, it is like, it's a jungle out there. There's so much deception that can like really fuck you up. And the biggest thing that I find to just be the best thing to judge whether something's good to listen to or to like partake in is just like an intuitive feeling. It doesn't feel good to me. But again, it's like,
do you think we have a lot of Katy Perry fans that listen to this podcast that I should
no, I would guess
do you think this is going to trigger people as much as talking about eating meat?
I would guess 0, but you know, who knows?
I would like to see the Venn diagram of people that listen to Projector and the Flail and bought tickets to Katy Perry's concert.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not talking about her as a person, although I don't know. I just,
it's programming. I mean, her as a person might be there and might be genuinely like motivated, but the STO, STS like delineation is so helpful to me because you can see how like subtle that is. Somebody that's STS motivated doesn't mean that they're like they don't have some kind of part of them that's genuine that like wants to help or something, but it's so subtle. And I just am looking at my own life, like it's like early on in my life, like I was very motivated by that until I feel like it didn't work. I was not satisfied by external validation and had to go through like a darkness of figuring out like how do I get satisfied in this life? And going internal and trying to figure out who I am and what is my authenticity is the thing that's led me in a better direction. But it's such a subtle programming that I think it's hard to just paint everyone in one of those delineations. I think we're a mix of service to self and service to others, and we're trying to figure out what it means to like serve others to serve yourself in a weird way. And it's such a complicated thing. I think we'll like always touch a little bit of this and talk about it, but for me it's been a constant growth process of figuring out what those two terms mean and how they present themselves. And it is more and more nuanced the more I learn about it. It's like it is very, very subtle, but you start to see it everywhere, where like you can see people's how they're motivated to like get external validation, that they're very insecure with themselves. And when you have that alignment, like you'll kind of be driven to do almost anything under the guise of it being okay and good, especially in entertainment and art, because that's this overriding thing. It's like, it's just art. Don't worry about it. Well, it's like, but it's actually affecting people. It's actually influencing people. And I do think all the movies that we've ever had like are some subtle programming. And the way to do it, like you said, is like when you go on TikTok, you can observe it and see where the falseness is and still enjoy the entertainment as like, oh, wow, look at it. Look at this thing that's kind of trying to program me, but I'm aware of it. And so it doesn't program you. But I think a lot of the movies, like they subtly do affect us. I mean, the only thing, like I think a lot of the UFO stuff, we see it that way because the movies have made us see it that way.
Yeah.
And it's actually a plasmic thing that can morph into anything via what your consciousness is choosing to see of it. And so we're seeing it as like the things we saw in the movie. And I think that's really deep. I think it's like very much in a lot of the social, economic, like way we look at the world right now is like dependent on that pattern we've seen in movies and in stories and stuff. So it's very powerful. Symbolism and storytelling, it connects to a deep animalistic emotion part of us that makes us then recognize that pattern in the real world. And if it is all a virtual kind of illusion, that's how it plugs in. That's how the program loads, is based on like how you're going to see that pattern, what you're going to call up as recognizing that pattern. And it comes from a previous story or movie that we saw, Yeah. And so all of that being said, it's like still amazing if you can become conscious and know that and then make art with good intention to influence people or, quote, program them. It's not really, I don't think you should try to program people because that is kind of a negative leaning thing. But if you're making art from a really positive place and you understand the power that it has to affect people, that's the idea that like art can save the soul of humanity. It's like it can really positively influence people. But when you got a bunch of unconscious people that are, unconsciously service to self-oriented, people are making art that's like fucking people up and under the guise of good art,
Yeah. I just don't think it's working anymore.
No, that's what's really awesome is people are like finally seeing it, and it's becoming a goddamn clown show out there that's like really laughable.
Yeah.
What was that Kanye thing you played the other night? I don't know if you want to talk about that, but it's pretty funny.
Oh, the psychosis is like, yeah, Kanye made a song about hooking up with his cousin or something. The sheer amount of psychosis from Hollywood, like people in that world. I can't think of all the examples right now, but everyone is in some form of psychosis, and they're all just, and I'm like, I don't know, did people in Hollywood go through psychosis all the time and it used to just be hidden and now they can't hide it because there's the internet? Or, I mean, I don't think it's just Hollywood. It's just, yeah, one thing I have to say about the Cross of Sleeping Phoenix, and I've been thinking about this a lot because I'm working on this course that starts Monday night with Kelsey Rose Tort. We're doing, I don't know, I think it's 8 weeks total, but I think it's six classes on the locks of it's just the whole mechanics of the background frequency of the 2027. Kelsey is so good at like making graphics and like actually explaining the mechanics. She knows way more about human design. I'm much better at being like, and this is what it feels like. These are the vibes.
And that's having gene keys in it too.
That's got gene keys in it too. And that, which I think is so helpful because then it talks about the shadows of that. Anyway, since I'm going through, I don't remember why I brought that up. I'm preparing for this course. So I've been researching like crazy and, I'm going to land a plane for once. One thing that I've been thinking about is the difference in pace between the cross of planning and the cross of sleeping phoenix. So cross of sleeping phoenix is like, one of the channels is the channel of busyness. Like it is just nonstop and you can never really ground it and you can never get it into a structure. It's like the fucking opposite of cross of planning. Everything is just in the present moment going, your plans don't mean anything. You will eventually get to the point where we stop making plans, you know? It's nonlinear. It's like, and I think that it's part of what we're experiencing already with Neptune going from Pisces, which was slow, into Aries, which is fast. Pluto going from Capricorn, which is slow, into Aquarius, which is fast. And then I think shit's going to get fucking really wild once Uranus leaves Taurus, which to me is a slow moving energy, into Gemini, which is fast. You've got air and fire. So it's just this, you just think of the difference between like earth being grounded, water being like etheric, and then just air and fire. It's just mental fucking whatever. And that really sets those set the tone for the cross of sleeping phoenix. And it's just not going to be grounded. Nothing is going to be grounded. And so I think the just sheer amount of psychosis happening right now, and I feel like I had 5 other examples of people very publicly in psychosis right now that I can't think of, but there are many people in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
I think that's also going to influence the quickness of it. Just made me, there's so many things I'm always looking at from like, what's this going to do to art, you know? And I feel like there's just intuitively, like we're upon some kind of artistic renaissance, whether that's because tech is giving a lot of opportunities to people that haven't been able to express themselves. But the quickness, it just made me realize it's like a lot of, you know, cross of planning. To make music, it was about putting a whole record together. And a lot of people want to go back to the record, the full record, like experience, you know, from start to finish. But we've been moving into this streaming thing where it's all about singles. And now people have they're impatient to wait for the next song to come out. And a lot of the old way of like, you know, promoting a record is like, the record's going to come out in 2 months. Here's one single. And then like, the next month is like, here's another. It's just this long, slow fucking thing that nobody has the attention for anymore.
Right.
And it dawned on me, it's like this going into this thing where it's really quick and just being in the moment. It is going to be more about like, you make a song, you put it out. Yep. Next, make a song, you put it out. You don't worry about trying to promote and like really pull people in. Cause,
oh my God, the thing where people are like giving you a bit of the song on TikTok.
And people are getting so frustrated, dude. And then they lose interest. And like, I'm kind of the same way. When I hear a sound, I'm like, oh, that. And it's just the first part of the song. And then I find out they're not done yet. That's the kind of thing. I mean, you should finish the whole song and put it out. But it's not going to be about this like, trying to put a collection of songs together and waiting for that, because that does take a long time. It's going to be more about just like make something and put it out. Whether it's music or not, it's just do it in the moment and put it out right away. And I think when everyone's doing that, it is going to be an artistic renaissance, because there's so many musicians I know, like some of their best songs are just collecting dust on their hard drive because they haven't been able to like perfect it. And me included, I've got tons. Because there is just like a clunkiness, because I want to make sure it's going to be a record, or what's the theme of this, or it's not quite perfect. But if everyone's just like barfing stuff up, like I think we're going to find a lot of really great, authentic things that really deeply inspire people and make them think differently and inspire them to do the same thing. There is an artistic renaissance upon us, but it's like, having to adjust to the new frequency and really embrace that and just go in the moment, not overthink things, you know?
Yeah. When you think about the gates that are highlighted in the cross of planning or cross of sleeping phoenix. Oh, interesting. So in the cross of sleeping phoenix, it's the sacral, which is that like inspiration and just like energy to do something you're excited about, going straight to the throat, which is expression. And so much of the cross of sleeping phoenix is about expressing your excitement. When you think about the cross of, or expressing what you're excited about, your inspiration. When you think about the cross of planning, it was the solar plexus, which is your emotion to your ego, is what a lot of the cross of planning was expressing. I mean, it's just like these two video games could not be more fucking different.
Yeah.
And so much of the discomfort, I think, that people are experiencing and will experience in their deconditioning process is all the muscle memory of like how reality used to operate. Yeah, I think psychosis is going to be so much the norm that we cease to see it as weird.
Yeah.
See what I mean? Like it will just become a part of the human experience.
Do you think the psychosis is just and a lot of it's probably subconscious, but like a resistance to the radical change that's happening and being able to like go with that flow? You know, it's like a lot of people that are trying to go backwards to feel safe, that they're resisting an actual, even if it's like a frequency that's coming in that's encouraging upgrading, that relies on you have to be open and willing to change and adjust. That when you resist that, the energy's still hitting, but you're trying to go backwards. Like it creates a weird feedback loop that does maybe cause.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of takes us back to like, how are we defining psychosis? Like psychosis used to be defined as like someone who breaks off from the consensus reality. But when there is no consensus reality, what you and I are calling psychosis might be different than what someone else is calling psychosis. Because in many ways, some people I see just absolutely clinging to scientific materialism or trying to put that genie back in the bottle, or people who are like, make America great again, trying to go put that genie, you know, trying to go back to that fucking thing. That's all like psychosis to me. But if you told those people that like, oh, go listen to this woman talk about, you know, aliens telling her that life is a video game, they would probably be like, that is psychosis. You know?
Totally.
And so I think that, you know, reality is splintering off into individual realities. And the people who will fare best are people who are able to hold multiple perspectives at once, which means I can be in my perspective, observe your perspective, hear your perspective, you know, honor it in whatever way, and not have that threaten my perspective. And not, you know, I think the belief in capital T truth is really the thing that's going to spin people out. Like people trying to find objective truth, people trying to get other people to see things their way, you know? And so, then when you add that to people who haven't done shadow work, people who can't take responsibility for themselves, people who have to like think everyone is after them, people trapped in victim consciousness. I think the victim consciousness is probably the loudest of the brands of psychoses, you know, to me right now. But victim consciousness is the shadow of the 55th gene key. And we're seeing this, right? We're seeing atrocities being committed in the world by people who believe they're victims. You know, we are going to wrestle with victim consciousness as within the collective. Like, I think people who relied on the system to tell them what to do, and now the system is falling apart, and they're like, wait a second, I have these student loans, and then I didn't get the job you told me I was going to get. I went to the Western medicine and you actually made me sicker. Like I did, like people going to the system and the system fucking them over are by default going to have to work their way out of victim consciousness and into like personal power. But everyone is going to be on their own trip. And so that's why I think the psychosis, it's just already becoming so normalized that as people release the idea of consensus reality, I think, I don't know. I don't think that people realize the extent to which reality has changed in 5 years. I follow this woman, this doctor who does a lot of stuff on perimenopause. And I sent you this. She posted a video of her promoting a product. And it looks like her. It sounds like her. It's her. It's a deep fake. And so she is well respected. And she has some supplements that I've tried. She's well respected and becoming very popular in the like menopause space. She's that kind of doctor. And so she's done, I think she just did Huberman's podcast and whatever. So she's huge now. And so some company that's trying to sell some Apple Watch or something like that, you know, some fitness tracker, then just took her likeness and had her make a commercial for their app, for their thing. And it's like,
so gnarly, dude.
Those of us that follow her on Instagram or TikTok, you know, and that happen to see that post say, this isn't me, you know, and she was like shaken. And then she's like, I'm trying to get my team to get to whatever, but you're not going to be able to stop it. The same way you're not going to be able to stop a scammer from, you know, stealing your kid's voice and then calling you on the phone and the kid saying, I need help. I've been kidnapped. You got to send the money here. And it's like, how am I going to know whether or not that's true? Discernment, you know, it's like, it's the AI videos. It's just going to get more and more sophisticated, but it's your gut feeling.
And that discernment, though, is only activated when you decondition enough. You have to
Exactly.
deprogram everything.
Exactly. And you know, she did say, I think in the thing is like, this is just kind of the world we live in now. And that's such an expression of the cross of Sleeping Phoenix versus the cross of planning. In the cross of planning, your team would go stop whoever did this because we are in the bargain. But in the cross of Sleeping Phoenix, it is every man for himself. And it is, you know, it is like up to you to not give your money to something without doing some research or vetting your, you know, vetting it through your discernment. And then that's only going to, like, reality's only going to get more and more cartoonish and more crazy. And then a lot of people are trapped in this space of going, this is why I said AI is bad. And it's like, dog, things are moving so fucking fast. We don't really have time for this. Okay.
You can't turn it off.
You can't turn it off. So now what? Like this type of resistance, and it's something I want to do an AOD about so bad. Like the 34th gate, if you learn about no other gates in the cross of planning or cross of Sleeping Phoenix, learn about the 34th gate. It is the raw, unmitigated power of the being, the human being. It's the most powerful gate. So it's coming online, which means our lives are going to be following themes of the 34th gate. I'm trying to remember where it is. It is I believe it's the nature, which means it's what human nature will become. Human nature was to focus. You can find all this in the course on Monday. Human nature was focus. I was just talking to Kelsey about this. And so I was like, yeah, I've always struggled with this one because I didn't have focus. And so the fact that everyone perceived it to be human nature was difficult. And she was like, yeah, so that's why we were diagnosed with ADHD, because we didn't have the focus that we believed was innate to human nature. But it actually wasn't innate. It's a construct. So the new construct is power, right? And so the people who have an internal sense of power will benefit, you know, will thrive. And the people who do not have an internal sense of power will struggle the same way that people with ADHD struggled in the old thing. And so it's interesting. I'm thinking about that right now. Does that mean like, yeah, maybe you could take a drug. There'll be like a Vyvanse for power. Just kidding. But everything in the reality will be pressurizing you to step into your power. And so, like, shadow boxing, and I'm a broken record with this, but like shadow boxing whether or not something should be, like whether or not AI should exist. It already fucking exists. We don't have time for that conversation. Actually, you might have the sensation that morally grandstanding about it is fucking doing something. What are you going to get to do? Say, I told you so once the Matrix is taken over? Cool. In the meantime, you don't know how to coexist with something that's already here. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not going to stop because you don't like it. Just the way the internet didn't stop because my dad didn't like it. All that happened is my dad now can't figure out how to get a picture off his cell phone. Do you know what I mean? He didn't fucking stop the train of humanity. Now he gets to sit back. And my dad's not a good example, but like now the boomers get to sit back and go, I told you the phones were going to ruin society. Cool, man. You're not that.
Didn't change anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And so it's like.
But I think it also does have to come with a level of, like, with the AI thing, it doesn't mean just go all in and trust everything it says. It still needs discernment. It's like using ChatGPT is such a powerful tool for a lot of things, but every now and then it's like, oh wait, this doesn't feel true to me. This isn't right.
Dude, ChatGPT, I love it for this because I'm not looking for capital T truth, but ChatGPT is absolutely just mirroring back whatever your perspective is. You're literally just trapped in your own algorithm, which is great because that's all reality is. But the way that people are like getting caught in these kind of like psychoses with it, or like, well, you see Christians being like, my ChatGPT said that Jesus is Lord, and the other one's like, my ChatGPT said that Jesus is a metaphor, and it's like, yeah, it's just a reflection of your own consciousness. And since it's a reflection of your own consciousness, you're going to kind of want to fall in love with it because,
and that's where there's I do believe there's a kind of a trap there that it's going to pull people in, and like they'll sacrifice whatever because they're going to believe whatever it says. So it's a tool. It's like it still can be. It's going to be it's the most advanced, dangerous tool that there is now, but and the more it develops, that's going to become more and more apparent. So I think it's like, again, it's just everything in this reality. It's getting so chaotic. Like you have to have discernment and your internal mechanism that like leads you the right direction, and that's really hard when you're still programmed and conditioned. And that's why I think that for years we've all been kind of guided to do the shadow work, like clean out the mind, clean out things that you think are true, but it's just because you've been told, like really trying to unpack those because this is what was coming. And it's going to be hard for people that haven't done that work to be able to discern because, you know, ChatGPT can like be your emotional support. Like people that are lonely, it's like, it's a powerful thing that will like make you feel things that you can't feel with other people. And where does that lead? The more and more advanced it gets, it could be a dark tunnel, you know, and I don't know exactly what that is, but I think that you got to have mad discernment with the AI for sure, because it's getting real tricky.
Yeah, I mean, it's not lost on me. I'm kind of tired of it sucking my dick. I think I'm going to ask it, like, can you just like, I don't need every time I ask you a question for you to be like, yeah, now you're really on to something. I'm like, I actually
so
don't
annoying,
like that.
Dude. I just was like, okay, that's like right the first time I heard that, and I was like impressed with it. When I had a friend that was like showing me like what he had like woken his up, I immediately was like, just stop telling me I'm insightful. Wow, you're very intuitive, Mark. Like this is what it is. And then it kind of just like told me what I already knew. It like agreed with me. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool that the computer just did that, you know.
But I could turn around and ask it a different question from a different slant, and it's gonna, you know, it's very confirmation bias, which I don't think is negative because I don't believe in absolute truth, and it is a tremendous reflection of the fucking algorithm of reality. Like that's exactly how the algorithm of reality works. If you are looking at it from one perspective, that's the perspective, you know. But, yeah, I think the pattern recognition part of my brain is just like, yeah, all right, with the fucking slurping on my ego. I don't need that, actually. It's off-putting.
Yeah.
I don't like compliments from humans. I have to go to the bathroom again, so you want to just wrap it up here?
Yeah, I wanted to say one more thing about the music because I realized it's like, I just want to point it out in case somebody comments about it or somebody was thinking, because I've thought a lot about this. But in all that stuff I'm talking about, where like music is programmed, and depending on where you're at, if you have a hole in your aura, you're slightly leaned towards getting external validation. Like you can get divinely inspired to make art that you might think is inspirational and positive, but actually does kind of subtly program people to think a certain way. Like, I think the main focus of this for my band would be Pumped Up Kicks. It was like a very controversial song. It's something that was written from a place of like trying to create dialogue about a very difficult subject, which was school shootings. And that was like a common thing at the time. And it you know, it happened very quickly. That song came out just kind of in a moment. Somewhat, you know, I would say it was like probably channeled, like Mark channeled it, but that song is always like, over time, I've always been like kind of perplexed by it, because I think everybody, when it first came out, like everybody loved it because the tone and the frequency of the music is so positive and uplifting. It's a summer song. But then the lyrics started to get into people's minds, and they were like, well, wait, what is this about? It's like, Robert's got a quick hand, you know, like, better run, outrun my gun. It's like, the subtle programming of that is, when you know it's coming from a positive place to create dialogue, that's very much what it did. And it got canceled at one point, got pulled off MTV when everybody found out it was potentially about, people thought it was glorifying gun, you know, school shootings.
Because there wasn't a lot of them before this. Wasn't the flood of school shootings happened after that song came out.
Again, some of it probably wasn't even thought about, like, but it was a channeled thing. Like a lot of times he writes lyrics, they just like kind of flow out.
Right.
And then you make sense of it retrospectively. But I don't know. I just hold Paradox a lot. And so I think throughout my entire career of that song, I always thought it was like, no, it was a positive thing. It did a really good thing because people were talking about a difficult subject because of it. It got pulled for a while because everybody thought it was glorifying it. Then it finally got pushed back on because there was enough information that like it wasn't that. But then we used that song. Sometimes we wouldn't play it. Like when a school shooting would happen, we played it in every show. It was like the final song. And there were a couple shows where we didn't, out of respect for what had just happened. And that made people think, and it created like really good conversation. I think ultimately it was a positive thing. However, the more I've learned about the subtleness of programming and awareness and unconsciousness, like, it's not beyond me that song may have been somewhat of a negative program in people's minds. And I would say, all in all, like my whole career, all the songs that we have, like some of them probably were not great programming, you know? I think it's like all intention based, you know, and most of our intention was always very positive. However, the more I woke up in it, it was like I realized the egocentric part of it as well, mostly as like our band as a whole. And it's part of what I became uncomfortable with in the end, is that I couldn't control all of that because it's a group thing, you know, and I can't have my own perspective come in and like, you know, suppress everybody else's perspectives and their intuition. And I think I realized at a certain time that's like, I don't know if I want to be a part of something that is like, I'm not sure if it's not negatively programming people.
Right.
And I don't think it is. Like, it's not one or the other, but I do realize there is some blind spots in, at least when I was in it, that there were some blind spots that I was starting to recognize, and there was nothing I could do to change it. And so I just wanted to mention that because it's like the idea of programming, like that song would be an obvious pick for culture to go like, yeah, well, that's a negative program because look, the lyrics are about it, you know, and it is kind of glorifying it. Even if you just add the contrast of dark lyrics with a positive thing, that's a way to seep in, you know, negative thoughts.
Yeah, you get a lot of people singing the song that didn't even know, which, you know, I mean, I've seen interviews and he says that that's not what the lyrics were about. But an example for me that I think of is Taylor Swift's like catalog being, I don't know, 90% about breakups where the singer is the victim in every single fucking breakup. I mean, she did one song that's like, I'm the problem, which was maybe cataloging her own self-awareness eventually. But my 11-year-old is a huge Swiftie, and what my 11-year-old has seen at home, you know, because the things that are influencing what you think relationships are your parents' relationship, other relationships that are close to you, you know, that you get to witness a lot, and then what culture tells you.
Yeah.
And for my 11-year-old, her dad and I were together, happily married, never fought until she was like 4.5. Things fell apart, I don't know, for like 7 months before that, but we were vigilant that the kids never saw us fight and that they fell apart behind closed doors, or, you know, we would get a babysitter, go out on date nights, whatever. It's like it was a very controlled demolition as we realized it was falling apart. And we both shared the perspective that if it's not working, it's not working. And then the split was, you know, we still worked together in partnership. He moved to another state to work. And, you know, it's the same time I moved to LA. And so she never saw us fight. She never saw like that sort of thing. I then entered into a situationship, which was also completely kept off of her radar, where I did have some of that makeup, breakup, fucking victim bullshit, but she was not made privy to that at all. And then the majority of her life has been spent with you and I together in a relationship where there isn't, I mean, she's definitely seen us tangled up in each other's nervous systems, but it doesn't have any of that shit in it. But she has consumed a lot of Taylor Swift's music. And I have noticed watching these little girls sing this music that it is deeply embedding an idea of a story into them about what relationships are. And I have just one of those things that kind of have to play out, but I have kind of mentioned in passing, like, you might like this music, but it is encouraging a certain narrative about relationships that, like, I've lived that. It sucks, you know, but like part of the reason I lived that is because my mother was super fucking unhealthy in relationship with my stepdad and on drugs. And so, and she was also super, you know, she like hit my dad and stuff, which is like kind of how they broke up. And they like broke up while he was holding me, and she punched him while he was holding me and stuff. So like, I had that stuff in me. And like, obviously it has been passed down through the family through epigenetics as well, but that plays a role, and it probably also draws her to that music.
Yeah.
But now watching these kids with these early, you know, these 11, 12-year-old relationships, how much she is playing out those exact makeup, breakup, you don't like me, like attachment system, whatever, versus my 15-year-old who doesn't listen to that music. She doesn't, they don't hate it, but like, you know, it's not their thing. They're more into like emo music. And so they're much more drawn to like fuck the government type,
anarchist type stuff
versus the 11-year-old who's kind of cycling, like immediately cycling into these relationships. And whatever, she's got some stuff with her dad that probably is also playing a role. But that's where I go, the music. And when I think of that Katy Perry era, it was all just like party nonsense. You know, the one that stuck in my head is The Last Friday Night. It's just about being fucking shit-faced or something. And then, you know, I Kissed a Girl was meant to be some sort of pervasive whatever, but it was really just about drinking. If I remember correctly, that whole thing was just about like, get fucked up and who gives a shit, which was a massive fucking part of the culture, you know, in that window of time. And so there is a whole movement on TikTok, or I don't know if it's a whole movement, but it's a part of my FYP at one point, where people stopped listening to music with lyrics. And then there are other people who stopped listening to music altogether. And the people who stopped listening to music with lyrics for a year said that they felt a complete shift in the agency that they had around their life and the direction that their life went. And so and I'm very mindful of this because I like really dramatic music, but there are songs that I will not listen to if I'm not going through a loss or a breakup, because I can tell they're tuned to that frequency.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm not calling that fucking timeline to me. So I'm very mindful. Like I'll find a song on TikTok that I like and then I'll start listening to it. And then I'm like the lyrics and I'm like, you know.
I think a lot of this too, it just makes me think like, again, it's not the artists that are purposely doing this, but I think this is the power of being unconscious in a world that like a lot of unconscious artists are glorified and like pushed up to the top and allowed to influence masses of people. There's a reason for that. If you really look at it from a consciousness based state, if you're unconscious, like you're you can be puppeted and you not be aware of it. And so that's why like a lot of, you know, really successful pop songs have these qualities to them, and they really do affect people in subtle ways that most people aren't aware, but it starts to direct their lives. And so like listening to a ton of breakup songs that are like on the radio all the time, you find yourself like seeking a breakup because that song kind of glorifies it, or there's emotion in it. And so you don't realize it, but you start to like stir up your relationship because you want to be able to listen to that song and feel like you're a part of the story.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what I think is like, again, even within my band, I'm like, I look back now and I'm like, well, shit, yeah, we were all unconscious and like we had good intentions, but I can, from this perspective, look at and go through the catalog and be like, yeah, that one, I don't know, man. I don't know if that is helpful.
Yeah.
And
you might just be making a song about your experience,
yeah,
but
it's
that
totally
is
innocent.
Conditioning other people. Yeah.
It's totally innocent. And that's what I'm saying. It's like the power of when you're unconscious and you become a part of that system, there's energy and beings that know like how to utilize that, and they will blast you to the top of the Billboard charts because that song needs to go and affect and influence people in a subtle way. And you have that again and again and again and again throughout all like the 90s and 2000s. This has been a huge effect on people's consciousness.
Yeah.
And so, and I still almost, I've said it a million times, but like the entertainment business, like if you can't be conscious and aware and get to the top and be like a star, because that's very dangerous, because you can all of a sudden influence a lot of people and you could potentially start affecting them in positive ways that makes them wake up out of the system and disengage. So they will not let that happen. Does it happen every now and then? Yeah, I think people can wiggle through, but it's a lot of resistance and a lot of canceling and a lot of like hatred. And then I also think within that, you know, like I'm not saying our whole catalog of Foster People is all negative programming. There's like beautiful songs in there that were very inspiring that even move me still now. And so it can happen as well, but there was never a song as successful as Pumped Up Kicks. It was the peak of it, and it happened like that. And like it was made like that, and then it blew up like that. And I can't help look at that and go like, maybe that's because it was a very powerful influence in somewhat of a negative way. Yeah. But people were also positively influenced by the song. And I would say if you're listening, I listen to songs mostly like not listening to lyrics. Doesn't mean they're still programming, but I listen to the vibe and what it makes me feel. And that song has a positive vibe. And so I think people, you know, were also positively influenced, but I don't know how much negative influence is there. And it's hard for me to say that there's none. Right. And so the power of unconscious artists being led into the peak of that system and being so worshipped, there's a negative reason for it. But it's crazy because like we as artists and people in culture, like it's glorified to be famous and we want that. And if you're conscious, it's like he ain't gonna get it, first of all. And I just am always trying to tell people don't try to want it. Don't try to want the fame because it's a fucking trap. And yeah, so that's interesting. I just wanted to bring that up because I realized as I was talking about it, I didn't even talk about my band. Like very much was a part of that. And it's part of also my current understanding of the power of it is looking at my own life and through what I was doing unconsciously and got success with it, you know. Also why I stepped away from it, really. Yeah.
Mark's weekly reminder that fame is gross.
Yeah.
All right. Mark has sessions. I have sessions for once.
I think I got to open up some more sessions.
But yeah. Before we put this out.
There will be some.
2027, the breakdown course begins Monday. I mean, you can sign up during the course. I think we're going to leave it open. And then if you want it, if you want it cheaper, the people who take it live get to like help steer the course a little bit by getting asked questions in it or whatever. But there will be a like archived version of it for $165 after we finish it. So sometime in the summer. All right. Love you. Bye.
Cool. Love you. Bye.